Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Embrace the Madness. My name is Madeline, and I am your host on the podcast where we talk about things that might be a little challenging, but we talk about them and we make them a little less intimidating and uncomfortable so that we can master them and become the master of our lives. So, thanks again for tuning in. I'm super excited. I'm super excited to bring you this episode because it's literally taken me months of experiencing it firsthand. And I guess that's so that I can figure out how to communicate it to you and learn you. So here we are. I'm just laughing at myself, really. But yeah, I wanted to talk today about resistance because it's just something that's gotten me. And I know how debilitating it is when you want to get things done and you can't, or your body's like, we're not doing that today, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I feel like I've been having, also not to mention, we are in our second year of this out of nowhere pandemic. So, I think really understanding that it's okay and kind of just accepting where we are in terms of what's going on around us. I think that really plays into the resistance because I was listening and it makes sense, but like basically just having like this underlying low grade anxiety all the time because we don't really know. I know it was probably a hell of a lot worse last year, but we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or just so many variables. And when we crave certainty, variables mean danger. So I think kind of leaning into my resistance has been really helpful and trying to somehow empathize with my ego. I'm like, okay, I understand. I understand that you're scared. I understand that you don't want to do anything, but we're not really moving forward and we're not really doing anything. And it's kind of like poking a sleeping animal, and you're like, come on, wake up, wake up. But not poking very hard, of course. So yeah, I've literally been telling myself, oh yeah, I'm going to get back to the podcast. I'm going to get back to the podcast. And that could just be me needing to reassess, like, okay, yeah, trying to do a weekly episode forever, no breaks is unreasonable, Like, I think you live and you learn. And I think I'm going into, it'll be year 2 in November. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like, I'm still learning. I'm learning what makes sense for me. And I think I'm also learning that what makes sense for me changes a lot. And I've been really leaning into my human design. If you've never heard of that, it's kind of like astrology on steroids, but I think it's super helpful and it's really helped me to understand myself and understand myself deeper, I guess, in ways that astrology provides. But yeah, hopefully one day I'll be able to know enough to talk to you about it. But anyways, it's been helping me. And part of my like personality is just not like my desires and my interests change a lot. And I think that society likes to tell us that that's flaky and we need to pick one thing and stick with it, but I think we're just ever evolving beings, and I think that that's okay to change your mind. And doing what is really meaningful and brings us joy, I think, is also another priority that I am learning to make sure is a thing. So, fortunately, the podcast, I think, is still something that I want to do because, I wouldn't know because I haven't been doing it lately, but I feel like it did provide a very therapeutic kind of outlet for me. And I think that similar to journaling, when you can put thoughts into words, into sentences, figuring out like, because I guess I see like our thoughts are like floating around in our heads. And we can like think that we know something, but we really don't know it until we're able to communicate it. And I think that's like a big signifier that you know something is when you can teach it to someone else. And so, yeah, I'm still trying to piece together my thoughts. Oh, yeah. So I think that before doing my podcast regularly gave me that space. And so since things have changed for me, like in terms of, I don't know, my whole entire life, basically, like just thinking back, like I was living alone. I had so much free time. Um, yeah, we weren't working. I wasn't working a lot of the time that I had the podcast going because I had just started it the fall before the pandemic. And so I think that that's important to remember too, that I had a lot of free time before I did now, and I had a different setup, and really so many different things changed. Like I moved in with my partner, and if you live with your partner, that's like a whole brand new adventure. So really just trying to get into my groove. And I think, I don't know what, a year later, now I'm trying to figure it out, kind of figuring it out, or figuring out that would like to restart my habit. But yeah, so that's just where I'm at. And I've had a lot of resistance in getting back on track. And I think that, yeah, just so much has happened. So it's so hard for me to be hard on myself and really unfair. And I think that we're going to talk about it, but just putting all that into consideration when we look at our lives and look at how resistance is playing a role in our lives. I think, yeah, we just have to be mindful of everything that's going on. And I don't think that it's like I do think that it's myself trying to sabotage me, but I don't think it's like malicious. I think that it's purely safety and purely protection. So, yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit of, I guess, the context for the episode and what's kind of been going on in my life and before we get in. So, with all that being said, I'm excited to, well, maybe less than excited. My ego's like, no, if we just keep putting it off, then we can just keep putting it off. But yes, I'm excited to talk to you about overcoming resistance and how we can better navigate this kind of blockage, this kind of inability to flow and continue to move forward, because I think that it's something that we all experience. And I think that it's because we are trying to stay safe and stay comfortable and honestly, like, make sure we stay alive. So if you love the podcast and you love this episode, please let me know. If you listen to it, whatever medium, Spotify, iTunes, any of the other podcast platforms, take a screenshot, tag me on Instagram at Embrace the Madness Podcast. A lot of you probably already follow me, and if you don't, go ahead and follow me on Instagram and you can see pictures and updates on the podcast and the Patreon. And if you've never heard of the Patreon, then I've got a story for you. I'm just kidding. Yeah, so the Patreon is this place that's kind of like a community, and it's bonus material. So, like, if you love the podcast, I've got extra episodes. I've got, what else? Meditations, and affirmations to help you, journal prompts, all different sorts of things to kind of help you dive deeper into learning about yourself and learning about the way that you engage with life. And the coolest part is that each month that you are a subscriber, you get a postcard. So you can actually receive a sweet little postcard in your mail. There's always cool stuff on the art, either art or pictures that I've taken, really cool stuff. My sister and my mom have been a huge help in creating beautiful things for the postcards. So if you want to know more what I'm talking about, you can log on to patreon.com/embrace the madness, or drumroll, please. I'm sure the drumroll sounds kind of silly because it's on my desk, but I've got a website now. So if you log on to embracethemad.com, you can see all about my Patreon, my podcasts, my music stuff. So it's kind of just this place where you can get all the things Madeline, and my phone keeps buzzing and I'm just going to ignore it. So hopefully you don't hear it and it's not annoying to you. But anyways, so yeah, there's just so many things happening. I'm like, the website. Yes, the website. So you can log on. I do have like a cool kind of breakdown with the FAQ, commonly like asked questions. So if you do embracethemad.com/Patreon, you'll be able to see kind of like a breakdown. You'll be able to see all the old postcards and kind of get an idea of what to expect when you join. So it starts at $5 a month, and then there's different tiers. And yeah, I'm super grateful for everybody that is currently a member. And I'm just so grateful for you, and I love you so much. So anyways, we've got all those things going. There's definitely links in the show notes, and you can also follow me on Instagram and you'll get more information about all the things that I just talked about. So let's talk about resistance. Okay, so resistance. I think we all have this general idea of what resistance is, how it kind of plays a role in our lives. And when it happens to come up, it's always when we're doing something really important or need to do something really important or, get our shit done. So first we're going to talk about what it is, when does it come up, why does it come up, and then how we can kind of figure it out from there on. So resistance, I perceive it as this feeling that you get when you just don't want to do something. Like the way I experience it is when I just have this, it's like not anything specific, but it's just like I'm all of a sudden tired, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of like the funny part about the whole thing is that I had so much resistance creating this podcast about it, which is like, I guess the irony of the whole thing. But yeah, I just like, it's like I knew that it existed, but I just didn't bother to do anything or create an outline. Like I literally have been thinking about this podcast probably at least for a month or two, and I just made my outline yesterday. So like just all sorts of ways that our brain likes to like, when you don't want to eat your food because it's gross and you just like kind of like move it around to make it look like it's been eaten, I guess, to either when you were a child to make your parents think that you ate it, or when you're like at a friend's and you're like, yeah, it's great. So it's kind of like that. It's like you're picking it up and you're pushing it around, but you're not actually doing anything with it. So that's how I've been feeling around the whole thing. But what also came to mind is they talk a lot about resistance with like electrical current and physics and science. And so the way I think about it, which I don't really know that much, I failed physics. I'm like twice. I definitely failed it once, and I was not interested in it the second time. But anyways, it's really hard to make any sort of movement because there's so much friction. And I think I looked at the definition, but it is opposition to the flow. And that really clicked for me because that can apply to science, that can apply to our lives, that can apply to literally anything. Because, you know, when water's like flowing and then you put a wall or some sort of barrier in front of the water, well, it's not flowing, like a dam. A dam is creating resistance for whatever water source is flowing. And so when I think about it that way, it helps me kind of understand, create a metaphor to understand what resistance looks like, talks like, acts like. So this idea of like withstanding something, not letting it overcome you. But instead of like us being the one not letting it overcome us, the ego is the one that's resisting. So the ego is the barrier to the flow. And I don't know about you, but my ego is really strong. And if you have been listening to the podcast, you know what the ego is, what it's doing, and that it really just wants to keep us safe. But it gets really sneaky and it likes to do so in ways that don't always keep us safe or don't really they're not synergistic with how we want to live or the things that we're doing. And it actually just ends up creating resistance, trying to keep us safe. And so that's what I've been leaning into recently, is just understanding there's some sort of reason that this resistance is there. And I just have to kind of get my magnifying glass out and look deeper. So when would resistance ordinarily come up? Well, for me, it's when I have a really important deadline, or when I have a podcast that I really want to talk about, when I really don't want to do whatever it is, like doing the dishes or cleaning my room. And usually my ego wins with that one. But yeah, anytime really I really need to do something, like change the oil in my car or take the car to the shop, just lots of different things. Like, and yeah, they're usually really important things. But resistance also comes up for me when there is this situation, this task that I could do that would actually facilitate growth and up leveling and becoming stronger or becoming better, or yeah, just getting from point A to point B, which is like a higher, better place. But if you know anything about the ego, which we've talked about a lot, is that growing and up-leveling is uncomfortable and painful. And when something is uncomfortable or painful or challenging or hard, our ego perceives that as dangerous. Because remember, our ego is just trying to keep us safe. And so it sounds so funny, and like thinking about, wait, you're just trying to keep me safe? Like, I'm just trying to mow the yard. Like silly stuff like that. So sometimes I'm just like, wait, what? But just bear with me. So like I said, growing, and like we've all heard the term growing pains. Like, growing is uncomfortable. Growing, like building muscle, you're literally tearing muscle so that new growth happens. That's painful and that hurts. And when we are averse to danger, we don't want to get hurt. We are avoiding pain because pain could lead to death. And you know, death for the ego is like the end of the world. And I mean, really, like, death is literally the end of the world for all of us, because once we're dead, like, we're dead. We're ceasing to live. And so, of course, like, we want to stay safe and we want to stay comfortable and we want to stay alive. So there are some cases when the resistance, I think, is helping us and like preventing us from doing what we think we need to do. And I think the percentage is so small, I can't even think of an example. But like sometimes, and see, that's when I think it's more of your higher self creating the resistance than your ego, because it's like your higher self knows like, we actually don't need to go to the store today because there's actually a really massive traffic jam, or you might get in a car accident. I don't know. Like, I don't know because it's so small, but I believe that there are some times where resistance is helpful and good. But anyways, I think more often than not, it's actually fear that is holding us back and keeping us from doing that thing that's really going to enhance our lives. And so for me, the majority of the time, it's when my ego is afraid of me taking that leap or taking that big next step. And I think that this uncertainty is just so scary, and that nobody knows what that next step looks like, or jumping off the cliff, like, what? That my ego's like, no, we're not doing that. That is way too scary. And we don't even know. We don't have a flashlight. Like, what the fuck? And it would rather stay comfortable. And just like literally, I can just talk myself out of anything. And that's how clever and creative our egos can get, because it just wants to stay comfortable and it wants to keep us safe, which is great. But like, why would me not recording this podcast keep me safe versus recording it so that I could potentially help myself and so many other people in figuring out their resistance, you know? But it really helps me to think about like the pain of growth, or, you know, like climbing stairs. It seems like it's getting harder and harder, but then you've actually climbed to the top and you can see a beautiful sunset. And the view is so much prettier at the top than it is at the bottom. And I know that that is like a wildly specific metaphor or example, but I think that that's kind of the frame of mind that I would like to get into, because I think really like that it is scary and it is uncertain, but like the gifts and the treasures are on the other side. Like that's literally the only place that we're going to be able to find them. Because when we stay small and we stay safe and we stay comfortable, we're just wrapped up in the covers in our bed, you know? Like we just stay there when we could like go, I don't know, to the grocery store and change our entire trajectory of our lives. I mean, I feel like I sound like I'm like reaching and getting somewhere, but I mean it really is like this kind of shit that happens and that you overcome so that you can take these risks and take these leaps and all the cool stuff. So, in order to get to a place where we're not scared and the ego feels safe and comfortable and calm taking these risks, we have to learn about it. We have to lean into it. We have to listen. We have to do a lot of things so that we can feel more comfortable leaping, you know? So, like I said, the ego is very sneaky. So, we have to equally be sneaky and stealthy. And so, I always talk about it, but I believe that the first step of navigating anything is just being aware of it. So, I think just by us having this conversation, like, that's creating awareness. Because whereas maybe you had no idea why you were getting these feelings or why these things were happening, now you're like, oh, this is what Madeline was talking about. This is what she means. This is why I'm tired. This is what's happening. And you begin to lean into when you start feeling that way, or when you start feeling really tired or frustrated and like you just can't like complete something. And so you start with this awareness, and whenever you are aware of this feeling coming up or whatever, just pay attention to it. And what I've been trying to do lately is like, if I'm tired, I just like notice how tired I am. Or if I just like start getting really pissed off, I'm like, damn, okay, I'm really pissed off right now. And you have to be really careful at this part because I think we are conditioned to start judging that. Like, oh my God, I'm tired again. What the fuck? And like, that's where we spiral out of control. So we just notice it. So, like I said, like when I'm like, okay, I'm really pissed right now. Like that is just a statement of what is happening. That is not me creating a judgment. That's not me shaming myself. That's not creating this story. And trust me, I promise I know how hard it is to not create a story because we've literally been creating a story our whole lives. But when you start to take these smaller baby steps at just noticing, just paying attention, then we can start to, you know, pull back the judgment and stop judging like so harshly. And so, since we've talked about this, and since you know how the ego works and how it's trying to be safe and comfortable and but also really sneaky, then you can navigate what's happening kind of in like a real time situation. And I know that it sounds like nearly impossible or nearly, yeah, like what? How am I supposed to do all this? Like normally I go from 0 to 100 and that's okay. I think that learning to pump the brakes is something that takes time and it's taken me so much time. Like what is this? 28 years? Like it's taken a lot of time for me to begin to slow down enough to listen and to lean in. So, because we know that the ego just wants us to be safe, we can say, okay, well, it sounds like it's trying to have my best interests at heart, you know? And so the ego's actually really this thing that is very fragile and very sensitive. And it's almost like a small child. And I know a lot of people kind of, especially when you get into like inner child work and ego work, they're actually really one and the same. And so I think that, I mean, this is diving deeper into ego work versus like just resistance, but I think that when we like kind of have an outburst with our ego, it's actually like our inner child or like our younger self trying to get attention, like, look, we're in danger, can you please listen to me, please? So like, whoa. So like learning how to listen for that and look at it that way, it's kind of like you start to have compassion for it and you're like, dang, this ego, this small scared child is really scared and I don't want to hurt it. I really want to help it. And this also takes a lot of time to get to because, like I said, the ego's really stealthy and the ego's really sneaky and will literally do anything in its power. It'll be like, I'm not small and scared. I'm strong. And I don't know. Like the ego's just tricky, but like, and I don't know if that I will ever understand it like completely, but like, it just like, yeah, it's doing too much, if you know what I mean. But yeah, so getting to this place where we can let the guard down and like talk to our ego and address it without judging it, without yelling at it, like we can begin to have a conversation and kind of like a dialogue. And I'm trying to think about like what this would look like. So for me, a lot of this dialogue happens like in journaling or something like that. Because or you can talk to yourself. I think talking to yourself is underrated. And I think that people label you as crazy or messed up or whatever. But I think that talking to ourselves, I mean, how else are we going to navigate our lives, you know? But figure out the best way that you can talk to your ego or nurture that kind of part of you in a way that makes sense for you. And so, getting this part of you to understand that by completing this task, you are actually doing good things and you are actually creating success and you are actually going to get a lot out of it. It could even bring you joy. Like for me, I had to finally just look at myself and just be like, dude, like weeks are going by. You keep saying you want to do this. I think it would be really good if we just did it that way. We stop thinking about it every day. We stop thinking about all the ways that we have been inconsistent and not doing this right, or, just going down that spiral. When we finish it, we don't even have to worry about it anymore. And think about all the people who are gonna listen to this and really appreciate it and maybe even learn how to navigate resistance in their life. And just really getting real with myself and explaining that that's important. And also, like, the thing too is, it's like, and this is also probably a whole other podcast, but getting into working with our egos is like being a parent and like creating these healthy boundaries and discipline with yourself and like, okay, look, I understand you're scared, but I'm also in control of my life and this is important to me and I'm going to be here with you and everything's fine, but we are going to do it whether you like it or not. And it will go faster and easier if we do this together. You don't have to, but I'm just letting you know this is what's happening and I still care about you and love you and want to keep us safe. So please trust me. Please, just something like that. Which also learning how to be a mindful, conscious parent is not something that we are taught or inherently know when we are born. So figuring all that out is something in itself too. So when you're able to kind of address your ego from this kind place and like willing to compromise place, I mean, this is even true with like humans or like family or strangers. Like, instead of yelling at someone or being angry at someone or like emotionally manipulating someone, you're gonna like get what you want and get this goal accomplished when you work together. And I think that like there's so much that we're conditioned to believe, and that we're conditioned to believe that competition is like a thing. And I believe that we've got a new paradigm, and I think that working together will actually get things done faster and we will all win that way. And you can call me naive and you can call me you can call me on my cell phone. I'm just kidding. But for real, like, I know that I might be like slapped in the face with reality one day, but I still choose to believe that when we all work together, cool shit will happen. So back to the ego. Anyways, I think that, at least, and this has been my experience too, like when I'm not yelling at myself or shaming myself, like I can get shit done. And it's like I can move forward ultimately like faster, and we just create a lot of fun out of it. And I think that like creating that intention of joy and compromise and fun is really helpful in this process too. Even if it is like doing the dishes. Like, there's just so many things, but I think that it's important that we remember that resistance is a message. I think resistance is our ego saying, are you sure this is scary? I'm scared. We could be in danger. And I think it's really just kind of like this invitation to lean in to listen to yourself, to listen to your ego, to nurture that part of you that needs your attention and your love. And you'll notice that like the resistance just magically starts dissolving. And remember when we talked about at the beginning of that resistance is defined as the opposition to flow? And when we remove that opposition, then we've got our current flowing, water's just bursting through. I mean, you could even like imagine you and your ego, you're like floating down the lazy river and you're just like, fuck yeah, we did it. We did it. And now we get to like chill because we just worked together and we got a lot of cool results. So I'm forever reminding myself of this, and I hope that this is helpful for you too. And I think to sum it all up, just lean into this discomfort when you are experiencing it. Be gentle, be kind, listen, and really just like remind yourself and your ego that you're in this together and you're going to do it and it's going to be lovely. And you'll see like magically, like you just start getting cool shit done, and you look at yourself and you laugh because you're like, damn, we recorded the podcast, we did it, whoa. So yes, I hope this helped. Please let me know what you thought of it. Please let me know if you had like an epiphany or a revelation and you are now inspired to get a lot of shit done. And if you're not, that's okay too, because it's important to remember that this is all a process and we are all on different paths, and no path is the right path except your path. Your path is the right path. So yes, if you loved it and you want to dive deeper and get more out of this, you can log on to my Patreon, patreon.com/embracethemadness for more. And yes, now that we are cultivating a healthy relationship with our egos, I look forward to recording some more podcasts for you, with you, for us. So I love you so much. Thanks again for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for taking time out of your day, your busy life, to do something for yourself. So I'll catch you next time. Bye. If you'd like access to more podcasts and a postcard each month, check us out on patreon.com/embracemadness.